This is Sister Marla Clerks from St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Parish. I wish you could have known my mom, because she was quite the character. She's been in heaven some 13 years now. But I thought of her especially as I looked at this coming Sunday's Gospel. And the reason I thought of her was because of a story where one day she was going to a nearby town, Pipestone, Minnesota, to go to the nursing home to fix hair for some residents there. And she was running a little behind time. So she did what maybe many of us do, and she kind of stepped on it a little. And once you know, there soon were the lights flashing right behind her, and so she pulled over and waited for the police officer. And when he came up, she said very innocently, well, what was I doing wrong? And he said, well, you were driving 55 in a 35-mile-an-hour speed zone. And so she pointed ahead to where there was a sign that said speed limit 55. And she said, oh no, that sign means that by the time I get there, I'm supposed to be driving 55 miles an hour. And the police officer said, no, that sign means that you should stay in the present speed limit of 35. And when you get to that 55-mile-an-hour sign, then you can increase your speed. Well, my mom decided that maybe that was a good time to talk to him about the difference between the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. So she told him that because she was going to do this good work, the spirit of the law said she should be let off the hook. And that because she was in kind of that in-between of 35 and 55, that the spirit of the law said that she was okay. It didn't work. The police officer talked to her about the letter of the law and gave her a ticket, and she was just fuming mad. It was actually pretty funny. But the same happens in this weekend's gospel, where the Pharisees are kind of tattling on Jesus' disciples, and they're telling him, they're not even washing their hands, that they're not purifying themselves in what is ritually prescribed or demanded. And they're so caught up in following their own rules that they're speaking as though they were God's commands. And so Jesus says to them, you hypocrites, you honor me with your lips, but your hearts are far from me. He's telling them, you're saying as though this that is important to you is as important to God, and it's not. Following the 10 Commandments, following the law of love, that's what is important, not the minute details that you are choosing to focus on. And friends, as we look at that and how that might be applying to our lives, or the message it might be giving us, is to look at our lives and to say, are there any times when I'm kind of caught up in the details that I have set forth for my own life, in the ways that I have chosen to kind of water down that message of love, water down that gospel of Jesus, trying to let myself off the hook, as it were, maybe trying to focus on some of the smaller things that Scripture says, rather than that difficult command to love and to follow Christ. I was reading a really good book recently called Faith Unraveled by Rachel Held Evans. And there's just this powerful passage that I would like to share with you. She is talking about the summer that she encountered a different Jesus, a Jesus who requires more from me than intellectual assent and emotional allegiance, a Jesus who associated with sinners and infuriated the religious, a Jesus who broke the rules and refused to cast the first stone, a Jesus who gravitated towards sick people and crazy people, homeless people and hopeless people, a Jesus who preferred story to exposition and metaphor to syllogism, a Jesus who answered questions with more questions and demands for proof with demands for faith, a Jesus who taught his followers to give without expecting anything in return, to love their enemies to the point of death, to live simply and without a lot of stuff, and to say what they mean and mean what they say. A Jesus who healed each person differently and saved each person differently. A Jesus who had no list of beliefs to check off, no doctrinal statement to sign, no surefire way to tell who was in and who was out. A Jesus who loved after being betrayed, healed after being hurt, and forgave while being nailed to a tree. And a Jesus who asks us, his disciples, to do the same. Pretty powerful message of what it means to follow Jesus Christ. of what it means not to just honor it with lip service, but what it means to make sure that our hearts are following that greatest command, which is the command to love.